Ladies and gentlemen, this is El Cochino, Tom Lawler, and I'd like to welcome you to the podcast that puts the lotion on its own skin, LuchaWorld. Bitchin'.
Welcome everyone to LuchaWorld Podcast, episode number 121. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we are going to recap CMLL's 87th anniversary show that was held on Friday, September 25th. In Arena, Mexico, in front of an empty arena, unfortunately, for CMLL. As I mentioned in the preview, for several weeks, CMLL was hoping to get at least a certain number of fans that could attend the event. Unfortunately, they were not able to get to that point because of what's going on with the pandemic. So they had the anniversary in an empty arena. And I think a lot of people were a little bit unsure about whether or not this show was even going to happen as we got the news during the week. As I said, last podcast, I did a preview of the show. And during that preview, I don't think a lot of the people that were announced having been tested positive for the coronavirus had been announced at that point in time. So I guess I should go with what happened prior to the anniversary before we get to it, actually. So early during the week, I think on Monday, CMLL sent out an announcement. They actually had a special edition of CMLL Informa, which ended up being about a few minutes long, where Julio Cesar Rivera revealed that Lluvia had tested positive for coronavirus and had to be removed from the anniversary show. She'll be quarantined for 2 weeks or 14 days. And so she was off the show. They did not announce her replacement at that point in time. I think they didn't, because I know they started announcing them for sure on Wednesday. So that meant that the two matches featuring women were both going to change with the challengers involved in that match. So we got to that point. A lot of the news from that point forward was where was Ultimo Guerrero and whether or not he may have tested positive for the coronavirus. But CML did not mention it at that point in time. Some of the rumors that had gone on for a few, it had been something that had been discussed, it had been a rumor that had been talked about, but not as well known about Ultimo Guerrero and Lluvia's relationship. But it was revealed in an article by LA Times, when they were talking about some of the luchadors having to do other businesses in order to make some type of money. And Ultimo Guerrero, as many of you know, has a food truck that sells hamburgers. And so during that article, they mentioned that he ran it with his wife or girlfriend. I think it's his wife now, Lluvia. So it's been a pretty well kept secret, considering CMLL hasn't brought it up and there isn't a lot of fans that really know about it. CMLL did not mention it during the announcement that Lluvia had tested positive for coronavirus. So that left us kind of wondering what was going on. A lot of people were kind of starting to think that was going to be one of the other announcements. So we get to Wednesday, CMLL Informa, and they announced that all the champions are going to be the guests for this show. All the champions were okay. They all tested negative. They were ready and able to go for this. Actually, not all the champions. I stand corrected. I am wrong. There was one. I totally forgot, because one of the matches was changed on the anniversary. There was actually one champion that did test positive. So they're going, rather than announce who tested positive right away and tell us that these matches were not going to happen, this being CMLL and Julio Cesar Rivera, they decided to go in order, match by match. So when they had news, it actually got announced during that segment. So somebody maybe tested positive higher in the card. It was not mentioned until very high in the card, and that we'll talk about in a bit. But the first person that actually got revealed as having tested positive, as I mentioned, was Lluvia, and Princesa Suhei were the first two. But then the third person that got revealed on this show was Ultimo Guerrero in the second for the second match, and that basically changed that entire match. That match was canceled, more likely postponed, because they did mention that Guerreros Laguneros would defend their trios titles against Hechicero Terrible and Templario at a later date. They specifically said sometime in October. I'm guessing it'll probably happen sometime in October, but it could always happen later on. But they did say that that would be a match that would happen. Basically, every match that got changed on this card, they announced that would happen or could happen in October, depending on the situation as far as those wrestlers' health status at that point in time. So that was the first big announcement. During that segment, they then announced that that match was completely postponed and was now going to be replaced by Titan versus Soberano Jr. with Titan's CMLL World Welterweight title on the line. So we got that match instead, which was a very good replacement. I actually thought this was a great replacement, and it ended up being excellent, as I'll talk about as we run through the anniversary show matches. But the fact that that got added to the card, I thought that was great. Actually, I think that should have been something that was added to the card, and they should have just gotten rid of one of the women's matches, because I think they were stretching it a little too long with 2 women's matches on this show, just because if you've been watching CML's women's roster, they just don't have the depth to do it, especially if you're not going to have Haru Chita in a match. And she's one of the few women in the promotion that can actually have a good match. Although I will say Reina Isis did pretty well as in her matches, and she's actually been doing a lot better lately. She had a really good match with Haru Chita on one of the Friday shows. So they replaced the CML World Trios title match with the CML World Welterweight title match. So they announced that. Then they announced that Reina Isis would be challenging La Metallica for the Mexican Women's National title. Then the 5th match, they announced Marcella would be defending the CMLL World Women's title against Dallas. Basically, they went with the second place, both second place, not winners, but the second place. The women that were in second place got the okay to work replace the winners of those polls. And so we got those. I don't think a lot of people were too thrilled about Dallas getting that match. If you look, you have her fan base that was really in favor of it, and some fans who kind of took it from a logical point of view of her finishing second place. She probably is the one that deserves it. If obviously if the winner doesn't get the opportunity, it should be the other person getting it, the runner up. And that's how, if you want to see it that way, that's fine. But a lot of people kind of saw it as, that's just Dallas kind of making her way into this match, which ended up being a horrible idea. So then the 6th match, which was initially going to be Volador Jr. defending the NWA World Historic Welterweight title against Bandito, had to be changed because Bandito was the 4th person that tested positive for coronavirus, and he had to be replaced, and he was replaced by Templario. There were some rumors that Templario had actually been, may have also, he was showing signs of being sick. Not. I guess they must have tested him for coronavirus and ended up not being that. But there were some concerns about him possibly not being on this show as well. But he ended up being on it, and I guess he was okay. We'll know more about this because, according to what was said on Informa, talent and everybody that works the CML shows on Fridays have to get tested on Mondays in order for them to get the results, so they could get the okay to work on the Friday shows, which means not just the wrestlers, but the referees, the camera crew, the announcers, anybody that's going to be involved within the arena for those tapings. So that was the 4th match that got changed. Everything else kind of stayed the same. But what was funny is that basically what ended up happening was there was really only 3 matches that the fans had selected that actually ended up making it. Yeah, it was 3 matches that fans had selected that actually ended up making it onto the anniversary show. And to be fair, that's not even like so much the fans picking it, just because they were given, the CMLL gave them the choices of who they could pick, and it wasn't like a broad selection of, hey, I want this person to have that opportunity. But the fact that they added Titan versus Soberano Jr. kind of tells you that at least somebody in CML's programming department figured they had to have one really great match on the card, that great looking match on the card, and something the fans would appreciate, and that was Titan versus Soberano Jr. So adding that was perfectly a perfectly good replacement. I mean, around during while they were doing Informa, I was going back and forth debating whether or not I was even going to order this pay-per-view, and just them adding that match made me change my mind to yes, I would order it. Then again, I did a preview show podcast, so I kind of figured I had to order it anyways. But there was that little bit of doubt that maybe I wouldn't order it just because it seemed like it didn't seem like it was a strong card, especially when they changed the women's matches. It wasn't even so much the change in the women's matches. I think just the fact that there were two women's matches, kind of, to me, that's kind of getting, and I'm not saying this because I'm not a fan of women's wrestling. I am a fan of women's wrestling. I watch a lot of All Japan women's wrestling. I watched a lot of Japanese women's wrestling in the past. I can enjoy a really good women's match but it's like the past 5 years, CML just has this really, really, a weak roster of women on, and because it's not so much that, they've lost women. It's more that a lot of the women they had that were very good, like Amapola and Marcella, they're getting older, and then they've lost some women like Zuxis who left, and a couple of other women that left as well, and they've really not strengthened the roster by adding newer women. They have, but it's like for whatever reason they don't really focus on them, like Silueta coming back, Stephanie Vacker, La Magnifica. I think all three of those women are talented and deserve opportunities, but Haro Chita is another one that deserves an opportunity, but it's very difficult for CML to give them that opportunity when they have Marcella and Dallas kind of hogging the spotlight a lot for most of the time, and I kind of wish that they would actually step aside and let others do it. And they kind of try to do that with the national women's title. You have La Metallica and Reina Isis getting that opportunity. They're newer women in the promotion, but they're not particularly great. They're probably at best okay. And with Reina Isis kind of starting to show a little more signs of improvement, but I ended up ordering it just because of the Titan Soberano Jr. And also I kind of wanted to support Reiko, Mehta, and Espiritu Negro, hoping that they would do well. And, also the Cancerberos being on the card. I think there was enough of people that I kind of wanted to see on an anniversary show for me to actually want to watch it. It didn't have that horrible cage match to it also, so I think that also helped. Also, I wanted to see what the shows look like nowadays because I haven't been watching the weekly Friday shows since. I mean, I'm not going to pay whatever price they're putting for every Friday show. I'm definitely not going to pay for it. I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to be continual for CMLL, where every Friday show is going to be something I have to pay for. I don't think I'm going to be ordering every single Friday show. More likely, if it's a big event, I'll order that one, the big Friday show. But like these other shows, the fact that when they were free, they weren't very good. I just don't see how they're even going to be as good as they were before that with people. It's very difficult. So we get all those announcements. CMLL. I waited. I even waited till the very last minute to order. I waited until Friday to order the pay-per-view. So I ended up. It was when I first checked it. I think it was on Monday when I checked how much it was at. It was at $13.60 US. But the peso had lowered, so it actually ended up being about $12.80. So I ended up saving 80 cents just because of my sheer willingness to wait to the last minute to order this pay-per-view. And honestly, I thought this was a good pay-per-view. It was it's very strange to watch Lucha Libre without fans, but I thought they were able to find guys for the most part that could pretty much do work pretty well without anybody in the arena, and understood how to work for the cameras. I thought this was actually a good pay-per-view. When I first logged into the Ticketmaster Live webpage, they send you a link, and if you haven't ordered anything through Ticketmaster Live, they basically send you an email with a link. And also, if you order something from the past from them, that is also the link and you have an account with them, the odds are if that link, the link they just sent you, or they don't send it to you, it's possible that one of the other links might work for you to watch the show for that week. I didn't know that because I hadn't ordered any of the pay-per-views from prior to this. But the anniversary, they sent me the link via email. I clicked on it, and it actually worked decently. And then suddenly it just froze on me, and you get that little spinning circle, and it would not work for me. What I did, I figured it might be my internet, so I actually turned off my internet and then restarted it, and it actually worked. It worked perfectly fine. It was on HD, and didn't have a problem. I did not have any issues. In fact, I would say the Ticketmaster Live streaming service blew away every single other one of CML's pay-per-view attempts. This was by far and away the easiest one I've used, and I will say that there were a lot of people on the chat on Ticketmaster Live. They have a chat on the sidebar. A lot of the people were complaining about not being able to access the pay-per-view right away, and they were complaining about it. But I don't know. It's possible it could have been their internet also that was the issue, or it might have been something else that they were having trouble with. I wouldn't know. One of the negatives about CML turning this into a pay-per-view, having people to pay for it, is that there was very little, and it happens frequently with CML. There's very little discussion of it on social media. I did not see a lot of tweets about it beyond, the usual crew from, Lucha Blog, Rob, Viper, and, the other Lucha people that watch it. But it's like there was really not a lot of people that were really talking about it. But this is very common with us, with the CML crowd. We don't get the same amount of people like talking about it, and I don't think I really checked a lot of the Spanish social media if there was a lot of discussion about it. But like I said, I thought it was a good show. The opener was Chamuel beating Microman to retain the CMLL World Micros title. Chamuel won clean with a modified standing surfboard. This was his first defense, and I thought this was a good opener. Chamuel looked really great. I think Microman looked a little bit, I didn't think he looked as crisp as he usually does, but he did all his big spots he was able to pull off. He did the whole guardrail walk, and they actually did this really cool thing where they did a different camera angle, and I brought this up on the other podcast, on the Lucha Talk, that they basically got it where you were seeing him walk the guardrail and then do the head scissors off of, do the head scissors onto Chamuel. And I thought that was a really cool visual. Hadn't seen it, maybe because there's fans and they can't get the cameras close enough to do that. But I thought it was cool. A really good match. Chamuel is a really good Rudo. Thought he did a really great job in this match. Also, they actually, if you count Micro Angel, they had 4 referees. And I think this might have been the best group of referees that they've had, although Olympico sadly had to deal with the whole he had to deal with a really crappy finish, and I'm sure he's going to get the bulk of the blame for it from the fans. But if you actually know what happened in that match, it wasn't necessarily his fault. It was more they wanted to get out of that match in a way where Dallas wouldn't win the title, but she would end up still looking strong and looking like she got robbed. So it kind of made him look really bad in that match. But I thought overall the opening match was good. Like I said, Chamuel was awesome. I think when I was previewing this match, I mentioned that I really think Microman, his big win has to come when there's a fans attending, because I think you want that big pop for his eventual big win against Chamuel, since he won the mask match. That's going to be his next big win. I'm kind of hoping Chamuel gets maybe a singles match, a title defense against Gallito, maybe against Guapito. They gotta mix it up a little bit, just because there's really not a lot of depth right now in the Micros division, and I think just giving Chamuel another big win against another challenger besides Microman would be another good way to, you could prolong it a little bit, considering I think this whole pandemic thing, we're probably going to be dealing with this through early in 2021. So you're probably the earliest I think you're gonna see a lot of fans start attending is probably gonna be March or April. So I think if you could hold off until then for Microman's big win, I think that's what that's gonna have to end up being the big moment for him, and really one of the big moments once the fans start attending shows again. After that, we get also the other cool thing, and I got Lucha Blog told me that this was something that they're doing now on the live feeds. If you notice on YouTube, on CML's YouTube channel, they post the interviews on there. Well, now those interviews they're the post match interviews. Now instead of just putting them on YouTube, they're actually posting them. They're actually airing them immediately after the matches on the feed. So that I thought that was a really cool thing for them to do, because not everyone watches the YouTube videos. Although you see a lot of people kind of clicking on those, but the live crowd probably just doesn't even realize those happen during the shows, or they have the opportunity to show them. But I thought that was a cool thing to do. The second match was Titan beating Soberano Jr. to retain the CMLL World Welterweight title. This match was excellent. I haven't been watching a lot of wrestling this year because of the pandemic and the fact that there really hasn't been a lot of lucha, and I'm really not into watching a lot of the other stuff that goes on in wrestling unless somebody recommends me. I watch something from WWE or AEW. It's not something I'm going out of my way to watch, not because I don't want to, but because I'm also watching a lot of older wrestling. So for my other website and for other projects that I do. So my focus is mainly lucha right now, and of all the lucha I've watched, this was easily the best match I've seen this year. This is definitely a match of the year candidate. If you have not seen it, hopefully you can find this match because it was excellent. Both guys looked in amazing shape considering what they're going through, and the fact that I think they've only been wrestling for about a month, so they haven't really been getting a lot of training, and although I'm guessing they trained a lot during whenever they could, it's more about actual having ring time for a wrestling show that they're kind of not used to right now. But these guys looked amazing. I thought they both hit great dives in the match. Titan looked amazing. I think right now Titan is I think he's finally reached that level where he should be a main eventer now. Soberano Jr. looked amazing as well. Just a really fun match. These guys were really this was a really fast-paced match. A lot of big spots in the match throughout. One of the things I noticed is that nobody really did the stage dive, and I was expecting that to happen, probably even starting with this match, and they didn't do it, and then you didn't really see it later in the card. But these guys were phenomenal. Really dug the finish where Titan wins with El Inmortal, and this was very much worthy of replacing that trios match. In fact, I really think this blew away what would have happened with that trios match, because I think the Guerreros Laguneros probably would have just done the same stuff they always do against every trio. Not that it's bad, but you already get used to seeing that. And I know Titan and Soberano Jr. had a previous singles match with a crowd, but I still think this one was way better than that, and these guys were fantastic. They did a really great job. I think the only time there was one spot where Titan saved Soberano Jr. when they were going to do a top rope spot, and Soberano Jr. kind of lost his balance a bit, but Titan was able to grab him and make sure that he didn't fall, and they were able to do the move very well. Just a really, really great match. Definitely a match of the year candidate. Go out of your way to watch that if you can find it, like I said. Hopefully, I'm hoping CML at some point will actually post this stuff, just because, I paid for it and watched it, but it's kind of something worth other people should get their chance to watch it, and why not? I mean, or they could do a replay and put it up on Ticketmaster Live as a replay for a certain price. I'd rather pay for this again, $5 for this show again, than watch some of those Friday shows. But like I said, fantastic match. Definitely, I would say it was the best match on the card, hands down. Although I think one of the other matches could have given it a good challenge for best match on the card. But to me, I kind of just thought this was the best match overall. They were then followed by the third match, which was Reina Isis beating La Metallica to win the Mexican National Women's title. This was Reina Isis replacing Yuvia, and I think this was a match that I kind of thought the title was going to change hands, just because the two women's matches I thought were the two most obvious that were going to change hands, just because if you look at who was challenging, you kind of thought they were, even like with Yuvia, I thought she had a chance to win, just because the people challenging were pretty close to the level of the champion. And even like at the top when they replaced with Princess Suhei with Dallas, because of political how she's connected in the promotion, you kind of figure she had a shot of winning as well. Whereas all the title matches featuring the man, there was a more likely, more of a likelihood that the guys were going to retain, just because their challengers weren't quite at their level, or weren't guys that were necessarily strongly pro affiliated with CMLL, like with Bandito's situation. So I kind of thought this was definitely going to be the match that was going to have a title change, and it ended up having it, as Reina Isis won the title. This actually was an okay match. I think Metallica redeemed herself. If you recall, last year she had a really horrible match against Dallas at last year's anniversary, and at least this year she was able to at least have an okay match. I still don't think she's really shown her best in CMLL in big matches. She's been very disappointing. Reina Isis was the one that actually looked good in this match. I thought she had a really cool clothesline in the corner, and was actually doing some moves that you're more familiar with from Japanese wrestlers, but she was busting out these moves. I still think she still does some stuff that comes across very soft, very light, and not a lot of it doesn't seem like it's something that's going to hurt, and it becomes very it's very noticeable, obviously, and everything that wrestlers do isn't going to look like it's going to hurt, but hers really looks like it's not gonna hurt. She does a lot of like her kick, her drop kick into the corner. It never looks like it's gonna, because she goes so slow. It doesn't look like it's gonna be even like, it looks like she barely touches a person. But I thought she did good in this match. She did okay, and she showed some emotion afterwards, after she won the title. I don't think this match, honestly, I think this match should have been placed second, because I don't think it really lived up to follow up. Soberano Jr. versus Titan was very difficult for them. It looked like you were going from a match that was going at 150 miles per hour, and then you were going back down to like 45 miles per hour with Reina Isis and La Metallica. Maybe 55 if you wanna like go a little faster, but it wasn't particularly it wasn't quite what you would want following. I mean, you maybe do just because you want to slow it down a bit, but it just didn't. I don't know if this was an anniversary worthy match. It kind of felt like it was just another one of those CML matches that could have gone on another Friday show. But Reina Isis won the title, and she, like I said, she looked far better. I gotta give her credit. She looks in great shape. It's no one can match what Dallas looks like physically, but Reina Isis at least looks like she's been taking care of herself, and looks like she can. She's not. She hasn't really. She looked far better than some of the women have looked. And some of the men too. I mean, some of the wrestlers, you could tell they've been taking a lot of time off during the pandemic, which all of us have. And but like I said, Reina Isis did a solid job, and I don't know what Metallica can do afterwards. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for her to really move up in CMLL. Just because I just don't see it. I expected more out of her, because she's shown that she can work, but it's like, I always feel like she kind of comes across like a bit of a disappointment in these big matches. Twice against Dallas, and the Reina Isis performance, like I said, Reina Isis looked so much better than her, and I'm not really sure about her. After this match, we had NGD, La Nueva Generación Dinamita of Cuatrero, Forastero, and Sansón, beating Los Cancerberos, Cancerbero, Raziel, and Virus to retain the Mexican National Trios titles. This was a good match. I thought it kind of started a little bit slow early on. I don't know how many people. I don't know if a lot of people know. Sansón looked like he hasn't been hitting the gym a lot lately, which I'm not gonna get too hard on him over it. He just kind of looks like he's kind of like not really been. He does like you look at Cuatrero and Forastero, you could tell they're still like staying in shape, but Sansón kind of looked like he wasn't. He kind of looked a little chubby, but I thought this was a good match. As the match went on, it got a lot better. I thought Virus, Raziel, and Cancerbero looked really great in this match. Virus obviously always looks great. I thought Raziel will look really good. That's one of the things that always bothers me with CML is that these three guys, like, while Virus he's always kind of in that upper mid card, that third to fourth match of the card level wrestler. Although in the past he has been even in semi-main event matches and even main events, but lately it's been more that third, fourth match of the card. And Raziel, Cancerbero have been stuck in first, second match, when really I think even Raziel, when he's had an opportunity to work against better wrestlers or more experienced wrestlers or guys who are bigger names, he's been far better. And I think Raziel should have been moved up at least. I honestly think they should have done something with him, Mephisto, and Hechicero or something like that, or Cancerbero, Raziel moving up with Virus up the card. All I know is that after this match, I thought the Cancerbero should be a trio that should be higher on the card and should probably be ahead of Hijos del Infierno, just because they do so much better against the higher card talent. Even Cancerbero looked solid in this match. The finish to this match was the cannonball, which I kind of liked, just because what they did was they put everybody they put all the Cancerberos in the corner, and then right when they were going to go for the cannonball, Virus moved out of the way, and then Sansón did a tornillo to the outside onto Virus and to get him out of the match, and they pretty much kind of protected Virus from losing, and they had Raziel and Cancerbero get pinned by Forastero and Cuatrero. I thought that was I actually liked that finish. There's a few people that said they thought it was a little bit weak, just because everybody else early in the card were kicking out a bigger moves, and this kind of seemed a little simple. And that was the other thing. I thought the Reina Isis Metallica match, they went so long that it kind of started to, you could start seeing from about the fourth match on that the show was going to go long, and you knew at some point someone was going to get cut for time, and I think that ended up being the tag match in the main event that ended up happening, because these guys still got a lot of time, and everything was one fall, like what was mentioned, and these guys, like I said, these guys looked really good. The Cancerberos looked good, and the one thing I will say is that NGD is kind of starting to get to that point where they're becoming similar to the Guerreros Laguneros, where they have so many spots that are the same over and over again, that their trios matches are starting to come across very repetitive. I think the one big difference between NGD and Guerreros Laguneros is that Guerreros Laguneros, because they did that tag team run with Gran Guerrero and Euphoria, and then they also have Templario to throw into the mix, that they actually they've kind of refreshened up the group, and also Ultimo Guerrero kind of teaches the other guys a lot of to come up with new tag team moves or trios moves, so they're a little fresher at certain points in time, whereas NGD kind of feels like it's starting to get a little bit too repetitive. I would hope that they would at least change it up a bit. That could also be that they need to get different opponents every once in a while, but it's CMLL, who knows. The fifth match on the card was Marcella retaining the CMLL women's title against Dallas via DQ. This match was hands down the worst match on the card. I did not like it. I thought the match itself was probably okay. I didn't have a big problem with it, but it was pretty much the same, because we've already seen Dallas versus Marcella multiple times, numerous times over the years. And so it kind of like they pretty much just did about the same type of match that they did before. I think the biggest difference now is that Marcella has she was one of the people that kind of looked like she wasn't in great shape, and she's also older, so she doesn't do a lot of the cool stuff she used to do. It wasn't too long ago. I mean, maybe 5 years ago, where she was doing these really cool head scissors out of the corners, out of the corner of the ring, over the top rope, out of the corner. What she would do is she would go into the outside, and then she would do like a head scissors coming back into the ring from the corner. And I always thought that was a cool spot. Well, she doesn't do that anymore. She basically just sticks to the same stuff. The foot stomp, the double knee stomp. It's basically a lot of the repetitive stuff that Marcella that we've seen from her. And Dallas obviously is very limited in the ring. And what ended up happening was Dallas cleanly submitted Marcella to the Scorpion Deathlock. But what they decided to do was they had Olympico reverse the decision and disqualify Dallas because she wouldn't let go after a 5 count. The problem was that the 5 count was so quick, a 5 count, that it just didn't come across that well. Had they made it something where they should have had Olympico count to 10 instead and said that she wasn't breaking the hold instead of just going straight to a 5 count. They should have done something like where it was like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, and then like have him like warn her at that point, but keep on like giving her an opportunity, and then just go at least to 10 Mississippis, then call for the DQ. Then that would have been okay. But what they did was they did it so fast that it made it look like they robbed Dallas. So somehow Dallas not only lost the match in a way where she didn't have to come across, where she got pinned. She basically just lost via DQ, and she ended up winning because now a lot of the fans are like upset at Olympico for the fast count on breaking up the Scorpion Deathlock. So now they're kind of upset and are upset at CMLL and Olympico. So now that at some point Dallas is going to have to get another match, and it was just a mess. I did not like it. I thought this was a really crappy finish. I wish they wouldn't have done that. But then again, I didn't want to see this match to begin with. I think this was their way of I think people kind of figured Dallas was going to win the title, so they kind of wanted to swerve everyone into thinking she was going to win, and then ended up costing her the match. But it was a really bad way of doing it, and I don't think it worked at all. It made everyone look bad in this match, and hopefully Marcella will have a better match against Princesa Suhei. But like I said, that's another thing. I just don't think Marcella is this isn't 2010 Marcella. This is 2020 Marcella, and she's just not as good as she used to be. She has not aged as well as some of the, like Nero Casas. Not everyone ages as well as Nero Casas in the ring. And it's not, I'm not even just saying Marcella. There's a lot of wrestlers that don't age well and don't continue at the level that someone like Nero Casas has been able to maintain for so many years. There's very few that are able to do that. But like I said, this match I was not impressed with and did not like. And I would say this was easily the worst match on the card. The 6th match, the semi-main event, was Volador Jr. beating Templario to retain the NWA World Historic Welterweight title. And this match was really good. In fact, I would say it was maybe a notch lower than the Titan Soberano Jr. match. And maybe that was just because Titan Soberano Jr. was so early in the show, and there wasn't as much of a dislike of anything prior to it, or there wasn't anything going into the match where I was like, man, or the time, it was very early. By this point in time, the show had gone on a little longer, and you obviously had a couple, like the Rainy Season Metallica match went a little long, and then you had Dallas and Marcella have that really not so good match, and then that horrible finish for the match. So I kind of thought maybe that kind of maybe that cost a little bit of my view as far as how much better this match was. But to be fair, I thought it was a really good match. Honestly, if you thought this match was better, you could be right on it. I think you go with either one. I would say I would still go with Titan Soberano Jr. being the better match. But I thought Volador Jr. looked really good in this match, as did Templario. Templario looked amazing. I think Templario's probably, I think he's probably the best Rudo as far as being able to work with guys like Volador Jr. and Charistico, Mystico, just because he could do some of the stuff that they can do. And like I was saying with Volador Jr. in the past, I think Volador Jr. misses a lot of the guys he used to work with, like Máscara Dorada and La Sombra, where they could do like a lot of stuff like that he used to be able to do. When he was a Rudo, he had other guys that he could do that against. But as a Técnico, a lot of the Rudos can't do that, can't work that fast style. Templario can, and he really did a great job because he was able to keep up with Volador Jr. And you could tell Volador Jr. was really determined to have a good match against Templario. And you also saw that he had a lot of respect for Templario's what he could do in the ring, because he was doing a lot of great stuff with him. There were a lot of big moves in this match. I thought this was, like I said, a lot of great stuff in it. Volador Jr., he took those crazy bumps. He does hits to the outside in front of an empty, no fans. That salida de bandera that he does, it's like this rapid fire salida de bandera. And he did it in this match, and every time he does it, and I've even asked him in one time when I was talking to him, I go, how do you take that spot? Because it's so it looks like you're always hurting your back or the side, and he said it's just all those times he does it, it's just something that's instinct that he's so used to doing. And Volador Jr. ended up winning this match with a Poison Rana on Templario. Just a fantastic match. Templario held his own. They were really just going at a rapid pace. The one thing I will say, the biggest difference between them and a lot of the other matches that happens, that they could work that speed at that pace, and it just looked so natural for them, and it looked amazing, and I thought they were really great. Templario definitely belongs higher on the card. He's definitely the guy that, once this whole pandemic is over and guys can start working in the United States, Templario is one of the guys that definitely has to be coming to the US, because he's heading to Japan, because the guy is so good. Same thing with Titan. I think Titan's somebody that really has to start getting more out there than what he is right now, because he's an excellent wrestler. I don't know if they're going to be able to do this as much, just because, like I said, with CMLL, their roster's really thinned out. But, to be fair, they're also willing to actually put a lot of those guys, guys you would never have seen on a Friday show are now making onto Friday shows frequently. And before the whole shutdown, we were getting Okumura on practically every week. So that kind of shows you that CMLL's kind of changed their policy or whatever. If there was ever a policy of who could be on cards, because to be fair, they've even had worse guys in the past. After this match, and I actually thought this match, I mean, honestly, the Volador Jr. Templario match, of all the matches that were on this card, I think this probably should have been the main event of the show. Just because, like I said, these guys were just going at all cylinders, and they were just, I don't know. I just thought they were awesome in this match. They're definitely, these are, honestly, the two. This is a show. What I got out of this show is that you really have probably CMLL strength is that welterweight division, and I think that's something that they really should focus on while they're going through this whole pandemic and everything. Is just put these guys out there. Like, there's so many guys in that division that are so good. These four guys to go along with Nero Casas. I think Forastero is also in this mix. Carbonario can be in this mix as well. He's been in it in the past. They elevated him. Reiko Mehta is also in there. I think they got to do a little bit more with these guys, because they're so good. It's a really great division. Bandito obviously also in there. And the cool thing is, like, I was kind of hoping, like, of all the matches that were on the card, that I thought maybe there could be another title change, was really this one, when Bandito was in it. But I honestly thought that maybe even Templario should have won the title. Volador Jr. could win a title any other time, and there's so many other titles in CMLL that he could win, that I think they could have done that. Yeah, I think this was probably the one match of the man that where they could have had a title change, and it would have been very interesting just because you could always have Volador Jr. chasing another title. But I think the other thing was that I think it would have been meant that we could have got Templario versus Bandito in October or November, and I think that would have been awesome. And but I guess we're gonna get Bandito Volador Jr. But hopefully they do something with Templario versus Bandito at some point. And the cool thing was that even like the four people that were in the three people that were in the poll to challenge Volador Jr. They got to bring back the 4-way match that they actually that CML invented for Jushin Liger's farewell. They really need to do that, just because I would like to see a Templario, Soberano Jr., Volador Jr., Bandito 4-way match would be awesome. The main event of the anniversary, of course, was Charistico and Mystico beating Espiritu, Negro, and Reiko Mehta to retain the CMLL World Tag Team titles. I was really hoping that this match would be good, and it would be an opportunity for Reiko Mehta and Espiritu Negro to finally get an opportunity to move up the card, and be a regular tag team. And maybe this would open the door for CML to have more tag teams, focus on tag teams, not so much have more tag teams, just focus on tag team wrestling. And unfortunately, that was not the case, as Espiritu Negro and Reiko Mehta, I thought they kind of weren't able to step up to the main event of an anniversary show. And to be fair, you're talking about Espiritu Negro going from an opening match wrestler all the way to not just a main event of a Friday show, but the main event of a anniversary show, which is the biggest show of the year. And so I think the expectations were kind of high, and unfortunately they just couldn't match it. They're a fun tag team, and I actually think they should be given a second chance, maybe on a regular Friday show, because they look cool together, and there's a nice storyline behind them, and fans actually want to support them. And I hope they give them another opportunity on just another Friday show, especially because they were doing a lot of tag team matches with them beating some tag teams. I think they really should consider just continue to keep them together and see if they could kind of like move up. I made the comment that maybe they should first challenge, after challenging them, maybe before giving them another match against Mystico and Charistico, they should challenge Atlantis Jr. and Flyer for their titles, the national tag team titles. Then maybe move up to that, or maybe they could get their Arena Coliseo tag team titles. Although those are that would be the death nail to poor Reiko Mehta and Espiritu Negro's tag team run, because those titles did nothing for anyone. They need to stay vacated. But I thought I had high hopes for this, and I thought Espiritu Negro and Reiko Mehta looked cool as a tag team, as did the Charistico Mystico tag team. But unfortunately, Reiko Mehta, as soon as he couldn't get the Brio Cometa done right, and he got caught on the ropes, fell. The one good thing is that at least he did not get seriously hurt, and he was able to continue the match. But I thought as soon as that happened, I think that match just fell apart completely. And then they kind of went, instead of this being one of the longer matches, it actually went very short. I do think that this maybe should have been something that they should have had the main event be 2 out of 3 falls, just because maybe they could have like saved the match. If they would have had that botched spot happen in the first or second fall, then they could have Reiko Mehta try it again in the third fall. And I'm pretty sure he probably would have pulled it off. And then we probably would have talked about this match a little differently, just because they would have had the third fall to like fall back on. That, hey, the first 2 falls they struggled, but at least in the third fall they made up for it. But unfortunately, it was a 1-fall match, and they just could not recover from that. And a lot of stuff they were kind of like a little bit off on. It wasn't a very crisp match. Charistico and Mystico, I thought Charistico looked good in the match, but I wasn't really as impressed with Mystico. The Mystico Charistico tag team ended up winning with a double Mystica on both Espiritu Negro and Reiko Mehta. There really wasn't any like a lot of kickouts of big moves or anything for the most part, other than them kicking out of Reiko Mehta's 450 splash. But it wasn't. It was a bit of a letdown of a main event. I thought I was really I'm a big Reiko Mehta fan. I always felt he's not been given a big push, and the fact that they were able to do this now and his brother got elevated, it would be interesting if Reiko Mehta had a different tag team partner, say, and I'm not saying like Pegaso, although Pegaso probably would have at least been somebody who had more experience teaming with Reiko Mehta. That's another thing. Reiko Mehta and Espiritu Negro, even though they're brothers, they haven't really teamed up that. I don't even think they team. Maybe they team up in Querétaro on indie shows there, but in CMLL and on big shows, they very rare. I don't think they've ever teamed up, and because Espiritu Negro has mostly been a Rudo and Reiko Mehta's a Technico, but it's not like this is an old tag team that's been together for a long time, and I don't know, maybe if Reiko Mehta teamed up with Pegaso, he would have had a better shot against Charistico. Mystico would have looked a little more impressive, but that didn't happen. I do think I like the fact that Charistico Mystico wanted to give him a second chance for a title match or even like a mask versus hair match. I think that would be fine. In fact, I hope CML doesn't just give up on these guys and gives them continues to push them, in the third or fourth match for a while, maybe semi-main events. CML right now is pretty much a 5-match show on Fridays, I think. So they've usually, it's not even like, other than the opener, everything else can be like it's changed the way they have their cards. So it's not necessarily, you being in the second match isn't quite like being in the second match on a regular Friday show where you knew you were going to be like, it was going to be a certain group that was going to be stuck there, especially for the shows that air on Ticketmaster Live. The other tapings they kind of have are they've had some lineups that look really bad, but the Ticketmaster Live Friday shows, they haven't looked as bad. But like I said, this match, disappointing. I really wish it'd be interesting. What if that Reiko Mehta gets pulled off? Would this match have looked a lot better? Would we be talking about it a little differently? But I thought this was probably, the main event was probably like the second lowest match on the card, honestly. If you're going to rank the matches, I'm going to rank all 7 matches, since why not? Let's do it. Let's be honest. I'll say the best match on the card, hands down, was, for me, Titan versus Soberano Jr. I would put that in first place. Second place, I would put Volador Jr. versus Templario. I thought that was another really good match. Third place, I would actually go with the trios match with NGD versus Cancerberos. Fourth match, I would go Chamuel versus Microman. Fifth match, I would go Reina Isis versus Metallica. I thought that was way better than the tag match. Sixth match would be the tag match, and then with Charistico Mystico versus Espiritu Negro and Reiko Mehta. And the seventh and the worst match on the card easily was Marcella versus Dallas. That's how I saw it. Overall, I thought it was a good show. I would say you had 2 matches that were well over 4 stars if you're into star ratings, with Titan Soberano Jr. pretty much getting close. I would say it was close to a 5-star match. Honestly, I kind of thought that was how good it was. Those 2 matches well over 4 stars. And then I would say the micros, the trios, in that 3-star range, higher than 3 stars, somewhere in that range. And then the Reina Isis Metallica match probably being a little bit, in the okay, above average match. And then the other 2 matches were the Dallas Marcella gets the dud. It doesn't get a negative star rating. It gets a dud. I would give a negative star rating to the finish, but the match overall I thought was a dud. They should have just got rid of the match, honestly. I think this should have been a 6-match card, and it would have been perfectly fine. In fact, you could have given all that the time that they gave Marcella Dallas to the tag match, and who knows, maybe they would have pulled off something a little bit stronger. But so if you missed the show, like I said, maybe you can find it online somewhere. Maybe at some point in the future, somebody will post it. CMLL or somebody will do it. Like I said, it was 2 matches that are definitely worth watching, and that that are definitely must-see matches. So I would say it was a good card. Really enjoyed it. Other stuff that happened, oddly enough, there was another title. The one thing I will say about the anniversary that really disappointed me, this was a big show, and they only had 1 title change. And I think for it to be this anniversary show, I think there should have been at least 2 title changes. And I'm not talking about one of the other early card matches, I think one of the main of the top two matches, I think really either the tag titles or the welterweight title should have changed hands. And since there was no way you were gonna have Charistico Mystico lose, I think that's why I thought Volador Jr. should have dropped the title to Templario. Honestly, Volador Jr., I think it would have been cool because Volador Jr. could have focused on challenging all three welterweights, including Titan and Soberano Jr. I think that would have been something cool for him, something different for him to do, him focus on challenging for those three titles. He doesn't really need a title. He's been around CML for a long time. He's already established himself as a superstar in the promotion. So I think they really needed at least one more title change at the top, and they didn't do that. And I kind of think that's probably something that a lot of fans are going to look at and say that was one of the bad points about the anniversary this year, was that there wasn't that other big match as far as a big, especially since you don't have a mask or hair match on it. You had to have that other big title change. And oddly enough, there was another title change in CMLL, but it was on one of the TV show, one of the other TV tapings for one of the other TV shows that they air, and it was Diamante Azul who won the Mexican national heavyweight title from El Terrible, which I thought was funny because CML did not really go out of their way to announce it right away. I think they announced it early Saturday or mid-afternoon Saturday, and that was basically it. That just tells you how many titles CML has, where they have another title and they just basically had Diamante Azul win it on one of their shows that odds are people didn't even realize was on. That was something. I don't know. Maybe they should have replaced Marcella versus Dallas with Diamante Azul versus Terrible. I don't know if it would have pleased anyone, but I don't know if people would have been happy just because Diamante Azul gets, even if there's anybody who is more disliked by the hardcore fans, it's probably Diamante Azul. And probably would have been some people questioning that decision, although I think Terrible being the champion would have been very okay with dropping the title to Diamante Azul, as he was, and he would have definitely done it on the anniversary show. CMLL also announced that they need more titles, so they are bringing back the National Women's Tag Team titles. They announced back in March a tournament to declare the new National Women's Tag Team champions. So of course they are going to do it for the month of October. And since it was postponed, they're doing it in October, and it is starting the first 3 weeks of October. I'm guessing they're going to have to change some of the teams because Yuvia and Princesa Suhei are out right now. Unless they go not this week but the following week, maybe they could get in that for that show. I don't know. I think it's a risk to have them out there right now. They probably shouldn't be wrestling till at least even after the first 2 weeks of October. So I don't know, but I'm not really that excited about the women's national tag team title tournament. I'm not going to watch that. They did also announce that the Dia de los Muertos show was going to be happening late October. All October shows will be available on Ticketmaster Live, much like this September shows. I think the price is a little bit steeper now. They raised the price. I'm not going to watch any of those regular Friday shows. I will definitely watch the Dia de Muertos show. Actually, I might not even watch that because I might not be, I don't know when it falls, but if it falls on a day that isn't Halloween, I'll watch it. But if it's on Halloween, I might not be able to watch it live, so that's going to be difficult. Since I already have plans for this for Halloween, so I don't know how that's going to work out. Especially since they're not actually taping the show. They're not actually if you order it, you have to watch it live, and you can't watch it later on VOD. So I think that's really stupid of Ticketmaster Live to do that, and CMLL. I think it's something that they really should fix and have it available, that if you pay for it, you could actually watch it on VOD at a later time. At least give people at least a 48-hour, 72-hour time for them to watch the shows. So that's it for this week. I know that AAA will be running their Auto Lucha shows in early October as well. I don't know if those are going to be. I know they're going to tape the shows for TV. Once those are up, maybe we'll do a podcast covering those shows. Who knows what's going on with all that stuff? But like I said, if you're interested in watching the anniversary, hopefully you could find it. A good show. And well, before I leave, I should mention that you be sure to check out LuchaWorld.com for all the latest news. We'll keep you updated on what's going on in Lucha Libre. Right now, I'm really only doing one Lucha report a week just because there's really not a lot of news. So I usually just wait till after Informa to post it. If you want more to support Lucha World and you want more content like Lucha Libre magazine write-ups, I also have the video vault, a monthly video vault available for everyone, and more podcasts, including Lucha Classica podcast and the Retro Wrestling podcast. Check our Patreon at patreon.com/LuchaWorld. That you could get all that stuff. There are tiers at $1, $3, $5. At $5, you get the video vault. That's the bonus on there. But at $3, you get if you're a Lucha fan, you get the Lucha Classica podcast, and you also get Lucha magazine write-ups, which are really good. There's a lot of stuff that I write. There's a few that have tons of results, some that don't have a lot of results, but they have a lot of interesting news and rumors on them. So check that out at patreon.com/LuchaWorld. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we will be back again soon.